a presentation for a paper for Dr. Lee Maxwell, and I am doing it for my course at in the next 6 minutes, I'm going to summarize NVIDIA's leadership assessment and strategy. I'm going to look at the organizational context and how the 4 leadership theories that we learned about in class apply. I also selected an NLRT assessment tool, and after assessing it and writing about it and describing it, I tried to look at some hypothetical data to look at baseline signals and plan, and then lastly, a plan for continual improvement using that with a long-term strategy. NVIDIA has evolved from a graphics card into a full accelerated computing and AI platform in the dawn of AI and its exponential adoption into the business environments. They now have GPUs and accelerators which fuel high-speed networking systems and something called the CUDA software ecosystem. The company has 4 segments: data centers, gaming, professional visualization, and automotive, which is new. In 2025, which is the newest data I found, it had reported 36,000 plus employees in over 38 countries with a revenue of approximately $130 billion. Okay, and this is mostly driven by the demand for AI chips and infrastructure under the leader of their founder and CEO, Mr. Jensen Huang. The operating context features pressure from other AI-focused startups, the DOJ antitrust court cases, U.S. export controls, tariffs, sales tariffs which constrain sales of advanced data center GPUs to China and from China, and on top of supply chain and geopolitical risks that are going on in the world right now. The upside is significant for generative AI as it is exponentially growing. There are AI factories. There's something called the Omniverse that's beginning, and now healthcare is adopting AI and NVIDIA chips in platforms such as Clara and Bioneem. I had to dive into the leadership theories and focus on 4 theories, which I think really explains the drive, momentum, and kind of like on track forward thinking of a very progressive company. I started with the trait theory, and so we found that extroversion, conscientiousness, openness, and low neuroticism correlates with their leadership and its effectiveness. Approximately when I did the exercise, they had a multiple correlation around 0.48. And this, according to the theory, the trait theory, this explains the leader's strategic motivation, drive, persistence around data centers, pushing AI and trying to be at the cutting edge, and mobilization of large systems, and also growing the developer network and ecosystem. But these traits alone don't prescribe how leaders adapt through research and development, the developer ecosystem, or policies. I then looked at behavioral theory, and NVIDIA's platform model demands high task discipline. And this involves their roadmaps, integration, and partner SLAs. And they sustain people practices, that is human-centered focus on policies, especially for coaching and inclusion and diversity. There's something called the Blake-Mouton grid, which frames a team management with high concern for production, like the chips, and high concern for their people from factory developers, et cetera, so that their culture doesn't start drifting towards intensity at the expense of losing quality of life or well-being. Whoops. I think I jumped the slide too soon, but I also wanted to mention that I also looked at contingency theory, where I saw directive leadership for expert-driven changes, and I saw participative I read about participative co-designing with something called hyperscalers and OEM chips. It seems to be achievement oriented and highly capable with R&D at NVIDIA, and there is very supportive behavior from HR and management. And this is consistent with the Fiedler and path goal models. Lastly, we looked at transformational leadership, and this seemed to be their primary engine to match the transformation and exponential growing adoption of AI and AI-related technologies. I looked at the MLQ 4 I's: idolize, influence, inspire, and intellectual stimulation and individualized consideration. So they align employees and develop in a really coherent platform, which is in line with the leader's vision. Crucially, the vision is part of the the responsible by design practices that they have. And it preserves their attention to detail and to regulations. So I believe that transformation mostly explains the kind of niche platforms that they have, and contingency is the logic, which is that driving the transformation. And in the behavioral portion, it's their culture hygiene, and then the traits theory explains the quick rise and emergence. But none of these explains the leadership on its own. So it's kind of a fusion of three, maybe two of them. I came up with this very cool looking heat map, but I feel like now I'm looking at it, it's not the most simple to look at. I had a regular looking chart, which is in my report, but this is very neat to look at, and it is it is my NLRT instrument, which uses the MLQ 4 I's, which you can see from the center, and it fits the Blake-Mouton behavioral balance. And I mapped Carroll's CSR to make sure I had social responsibility incorporated in to evaluate the decision making with socially responsible decision making. The tools have the 7 domains across 28. It's a Likert scale, but there's 28 items total, and it's a weighted composite. So it's TVE, BB, CFs, PGB, TLC, EDE, and RLC. So I'm going to try to report its reliability and use Cronbach's alpha 0.70, which I'm not sure how, is a hypothetical number, and of course omega. The baseline signals from the public reports and evidence shows that there's strength in TDE, which is their platform, and EDE, a scaled developer ecosystem. There is gaps in the BB, which is the coaching and well-being mantra, and then RLC is the moving ethics and the legal and those type of challenges. The cadence, okay, well, I won't get into that. That is in the report, and the action threshold was 3.8. There's 3 immediate actions like the domains and KPIs. There was the one fit play goal of path goal, where we train managers to select directive, participative, supportive, or achievement-oriented behaviors by context and audit them quarterly. Then the second part was transformational coaching, and this is the improvement plan for long-term. This is one-on-ones and mentoring to protect the BB target of 0.30. And then the third thing is responsible by design. I want to add ethics and legal gates to achieve 100% gating for the initiatives within 1 year. The long-term strategy is to reinforce platform flywheel, accelerators, networking, and drive developer-first scaling using time to first success and co-creation velocity, embed geostrategy and export-compliant variants, and lead an energy-efficient accelerated computing incentive, and institutionalize high standards with supportive culture. Together, these priorities operationalize the assessment, sustain competitive advantage, and align to the presentation to the presentation's research. Thank you very much.